Okay, I will now call to order the regular meeting for the Shell Rock River Watershed District for May 11th, 2021. Yeah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius.
Here.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Watkins.
Here.
Manager DeBoer.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager Pasuski.
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye. Next item is the public forum. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a comment from Norman Bangert. And I'll just quick read the letter he sent in, and then I'll pass around some pictures. And for those that are on Zoom, we'll get the pictures out to you as well. It says enclosed are some photos taken on May 9th, 2021 at the outlet of Lower Twin Lakes. Two pictures show the natural outlet with the rock barrier made with limestone rock and a small trickle of water that makes its way through. The other photos show the amount of sticks and debris that were plugging up the overflow culvert. The photo with the catwalk shows that before the clean out hardly had any water going through it. And the next on May 10th, the beavers had plugged the culvert tight again. One beaver has been removed on May 8th. My question is, how do you expect the upper lake to be lowered to get the aquatic plants to grow if you don't let the water out of the lower lake? The response to that is yes, we do understand that there is a beaver problem out there. However, it is a AMA, and we have to have a special permit from the DNR to go out there and trap. Scott has been out there a couple times, unplugging the culvert. So we know that there's a beaver issue out there. We're working on trying to resolve it. Again, it's Mother Nature at her best. That can make these times difficult. It's hard to monitor water levels because if I remember right, Scott, the gauge is not even in the water at this time because the water level is so low. But we do see the concerns of that overflow culvert being plugged. And again, we'll work with Janine as the DNR manager of that property to try to resolve those issues with them. As far as the upper lake, upper twin, I believe there is enough elevation between the two lakes that if we want to draw down upper twin with the new pump station we put in, we can. We did have some minor issues with backflow when we ran the pumps this winter, but the DNR did run the pumps all winter, did draw down the lake. They improvised and put some sandbags up higher than the stop logs to reduce the backflow back into upper twin. We have since worked with a contractor who's going to resolve that problem as far as putting the stop logs further back and making them a little bit taller. For right around $3,000, we'll be fixing that issue hopefully before the end of June, so it can be funded through the grant yet. So those are the comments. If there's any questions from you guys regarding upper and lower twin. Again, beaver have a tendency to plug up water, so it's a battle with Mother Nature.
So at this point, then we have not talked to Janine about it, or we have?
Scott has had a few calls and emails into Janine. She has been reluctant, would you say, to give us a permit?
Yeah.
Why would that be?
I think she wants to handle it in staff, just with no removal of beavers.
Okay. So if that doesn't work, then where do we go from there? If it doesn't get taken care of?
Then we just go further up the top of the food chain to get somebody to handle the issue.
Okay. You else have any questions? With that, we'll go on to the consent agenda. The following items will be acted upon without discussion in accordance with the staff recommendation and associated documents unless a manager requests opportunity for discussion. A, minutes of the April 13th, 2021 Shell Rock River Watershed District regular board meeting. B, minutes of the April 29th, 2021 Shell Rock River Watershed District special board meeting. C, minutes of the April 29th, 2021 Bell Rock River Watershed District Workshop. B, April 2021 Treasurer's Report, subject to audit. D, April 2021 Project Fund Treasurer's Report, subject to audit. F, authorized payment of claims. G, authorized payment of project fund disbursements. Did I say for A, the 29th, or did I say 13th? For some reason, I thought it was,
You're fine.
okay, good. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Yes.
Made by
Joe.
Manager Pasuski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Made by Manager Kramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Pasuski, Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried. On to item 3, approval of agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions that need to be made to the rest of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, we do have one addition. It'll be item 6A under technical specialist Scott Christensen. It'll be a motion to approve culvert repair at Wedge Creek Reach 6.
With that, is there a motion to approve with the addition?
Move, Joe.
Made by Manager Pasuski, do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Manager Kramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Pasuski, Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried. That item number 4, Administrator Andy Henschel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on the agenda is a motion to approve the engineer's estimate for Fountain Lake Restoration Phase 3 design. As we talked about in the workshop, one of the requests that we have been getting from the DNR is to get the design phase plans in for Phase 3 to get that permitting on the move prior to, even prior to funding. So I do have a quote that was in your packets from Ramball for the design phase of Phase 3, which is a total of $57,500. But what I will be asking for today is approval for only task 17, which is Phase 3 dredge permitting. This includes engineers' services, field expenses, travel, and permit fees for $46,800. I have looked at and through the budget, and I believe we will be fine with the budget if we move forward with task 17 of the Ramball engineering services. So looking for a motion or comments or questions on item A.
Do I have a motion? Made by Manager Pistorius. Do I have a second?
Second, Pasuski.
Seconded by Manager Pasuski. Any discussion?
Morning.
I got one question, I guess,
In the pocket?
our fast relationship with our engineers is that issue gonna be resolved as far as cells 2, 3?
2 and 3. Again, that's why I'm asking only for task 17, which is just the design for the dredge cuts out on the lake. I'm not asking for task 18, which is to look at cell 4 for preliminary planning for the CDF, because it is a possibility that we might take that elsewhere when it comes to that point. So that's why as of right now, I'm only asking for task 17 to be approved, and that is just for the design work and the design cuts for phase 3 of the main lake. The one thing I do want to note, if you do look at the map that they have on the back of their presentation, it does not include the westernmost or easternmost part of the lake. That will be included. It was an error on their part. We have already discussed that, but it shows the areas that we will be looking at for that phase 3 contract for permitting and design. So just note that this will extend the entire lake over to the dam area. So
So we're kind of doing this in good faith with the DNR and the state of Minnesota, funding in the future then?
well, we are taking the risk that we don't receive funding again this year or next year. But it's a risk that's going to cost us $46,800, but it's also a benefit to us that once we get the funding, we can move right into dredging and we don't have to wait for any delays on the permitting like we did the first time. If you remember the first time, it took us 18 months to get the permitting. So I think the reason behind this is to, again, show the DNR what we're looking at for phase 3 and what we're looking at for dredge cuts to get that permit process moving a little bit faster.
I had some questions on the way into town, but I guess you've answered them, so I'm in support of it now, I guess. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Pistorius?
Aye.
Manager Kramer?
Aye.
Manager Bachmann?
Aye.
Manager Hanson?
Aye.
Manager Bestuski? Manager Belcher?
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item B is an update regarding cells, CDF cells 2 and 3. The cell 2 has been the primary cell being used by Brennan. They actually just hooked up the piping and stuff for cell 3 yesterday. So they will start piping effluent or discharge into cell 3. Right now, the way they have it set up, they can actually pump into all 3 cells, cell 1, cell 2, and cell 3, to try to maximize total capacity of each cell, which is nice. The other thing that helps with this is water quality. Now we have some cells that we can move it around and help the water settle out before it discharges back to the lake. So it's nice to see them finally getting that cell 3 established and hooked up and all the piping in place. If you remember though, with the permit right now, we can only fill cell 3 halfway, and then we have to go through an observation phase and then approval from DNR to fully fill cell 3. But as of right now, we see no structural issues out there with cell 3. So everything is looking good. Item C.
I have a question on.
Oh,
How
sorry.
much, I was asked this question here last week.
Yep.
Do we have any room left in cell 1?
We do have some room left in cell 1. Yes. Yep.
Very much, or?
Not a lot. I don't know an exact number for you. I want to say it's somewhere around 30,000 cubic yards of material. It is right now, if you go out to the CDF, cell 1 is completely dry, which is nice. It's not holding or ponding water out there. So the water is dewatering out of cell 1. So it is completely dry. And again, I don't expect them to start using that until midsummer. If we have the ability to use cells 2 and 3, but by the end of summer, we will have maximized our storage area in cell 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think some of us have been on the dredges down in Iowa a few years ago. The site at Clear Lake has volunteer trees on it. I don't know if they've done anything about it since that last time I was down there, but is that a program that we're gonna look at for ours, or will we get volunteer trees in ours, or?
Well, as of right now, it is under Brennan's contract for maintenance. So they mow the CDF every summer. So with the mowing, we do not have any volunteer trees out there at this time. So I would assume that once the dredge contracts are completed, then it is our responsibility for maintenance and care out there. So again, at that time, I would assume the board would make a decision if we just keep mowing or spraying or whatever it might be until whether we turn it over to back into ag ground or, whatever the end use for that site will be. But it'll definitely be a maintenance portion after that. But as of right now, we do not have any veg issues out on site.
Okay. Well, to me, it limits your options if the volunteer trees come in, what you can do to dry it out or use it again or whatever. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So they're not driving on cell one mowing?
No, the inside is just dirt. There is nothing growing on the inside as of right now. There is some water veg growing on probably the northwest side of it. But again, it's just veg that dies off and comes back. So as far as trees or noxious weeds, thistle, any of that, it's not a big issue on the cells themselves right now.
Maybe we get to July, a couple of us go with staff or whatever. I'd like to see it. I haven't been out there for another year, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've taken Brad out there probably early this year or late last fall.
About 2-3 months, probably 2 months ago.
2 months ago, we've been out there. So yeah, just feel free to get a hold of us and we'll take you out there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, item C is a legislative update, and I do have Judy online if she's prepared. Judy, you want to give us a little update on the legislature?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Just a real brief update. We're in the last week of the regular session. I expect that we will have special session, hopefully not going any longer than June 30th. Where we're at the legislature overall is the House, Senate, and the House and the Senate need to agree on sort of the global, how the budget is going to go before we can move forward on almost anything at this point. Specifically for the Shell Rock, the LCCMR package and the legacy packages are all in conference committees. I think the legacy package will be resolved fairly easily. The LCCMR packages are all rolled in the Environment Omnibus Bill, and so there's some interesting things going on with that. We are all hopeful at the end of the day, since if you don't pass the environment budget by June 30th, state parks will close over the 4th of July, and that's a pretty big hammer on people to get things done on the environmental side. As far as bonding goes, there has been no movement since we last talked. I will say that Representative Bennett and Senator Dornick are working very hard on our behalf. I've talked to them fairly regularly, and nothing has moved on bonding. The bonding bill hasn't been presented to the House for a vote. The Senate has not even released a bonding bill at this point. So there's a bit of work yet to be done. And I don't know what the odds are at this point. I'm very pleased though with the hard work that Representative Bennett and Senator Dornick are doing on our behalf with their key policymakers. So here we are. Stay tuned, I guess, is where we're at with that for right now.
Thanks, Judy. Any comments on, I know you talked about Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage. You had a pretty good feeling on that one as far as getting approved. And for the managers and the public out there, that's our grant source that we do a lot of our wetland restorations, our land acquisitions with. That one's looking pretty good.
Yes, that's looking pretty good. There's just one major issue that needs to be resolved on the legacy side. And that, that should come through just fine. Everything should come through. You're just going to have to, again, I don't know. We're kind of in this cycle that we have been for almost 10 years that the legislature finishes everything in special sessions. They're on unable to finish during the regular session. The clock is ticking. We have until midnight on Monday, and just the physical work of passing bills once they are out of conference committees is quite time consuming. And since no conference committees have completed any work on any of the bills, I am somewhat not up. I am fairly confident that we are going to be going into special session possibly as early as next week.
All right, thank you for the update. Any managers have any questions for Judy?
I've got one, please.
With Bobby?
Judy, on the legacy money, a lot of times in the past, they had you purchase the property, land to do their projects. Has that changed at all? So they're using more easements yet, or do you see that coming down the road as a work between the landowners and the watershed DNR or whatever, as more easements are available? Do you see that, or?
That's a great question. And I think really it's up to all the people who are proposing projects are choosing, like for the Shell Rock, the choices that we have, and Courtney can maybe answer that even better than I can, is what is the project goals and needs, and is that accomplished via easement or via land acquisition? So I still think it's a very mixed bag. I don't think people are pulling away from land acquisition. I think their land acquisition is a tool depending on what the outcomes and the goals of your project are.
Yeah, I can add in a little bit. Yes, Lessard Sam's does have a protect and easement option. It's pretty recent. Andy and I have actually met with Lessard Sam's staff to figure out a little bit more of the details in that. We're planning on using that as a future tool as a protect and easement option.
Yeah, and just to note, a lot of times when it comes to protect through acquisition or protect through easement, it's really not our say as a district, it's the say of the landowner, what the landowner wants. If the landowner wants to sell through acquisition, then that's how we move forward with the acquisition. If the landowner wants to increase habitat, but he doesn't want to turn it over to the public, that's where this easement portion can come into play. So it actually sort of opens up the toolbox for us now, because we do have these landowners out there that are interested in improving habitat on their property, but yet they don't want to sell or don't want it into public hands. So that's where this easement portion, that's why we've had these initial discussions with Lessard Sam's to start looking at some of these projects. And I think you'll see in some of our upcoming grant applications to Lessard Sam's, you'll start seeing those easements in there, because we've had conversations with landowners that want to look at the easement route versus the acquisition route.
So that is already going on already then with the easement.
We haven't had any to date as of yet. Other entities have, like Pheasants Forever does a protect and easement, but like I said, it's something that we're opening the door to being able to do that as well. But as Andy mentioned, it is the landowner's say.
It is something that we can do though.
Yes, it is an option.
All right, thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the last update I have for you is the Headwaters property, and I'm probably going to be looking at a motion from the board just to give the staff some direction. We have been looking at alternative uses for this site and what the district, how the district wants to move forward with this site. As of now, staff's recommendation is that the board gives staff the permission to put the garage up for bid to the public that is out on the site. And the second motion that I would be asking for is there is a large volume of gravel and sand underneath the site. And I think right now the best opportunity for the district would be able to put that out for a lease, to lease the gravel from us. And then with that, whoever leases the gravel then would take care of the building, take care of the buildings out there. So we don't have the cost of removing the buildings out there. There would be 3 buildings if we do sell the garage out there. So that's one of the options that I want to give the board to make a motion to have staff do. Now, I'm definitely open for other comments. If there's other thoughts or other uses the board would like to see, but that would be my recommendation at this time.
And plus, there's a lot of trees that have to come out too.
Yeah, there'd be, if they're gonna mine that, there's a ton of trees that come out. We do actually have one project that we will be probably using some of the trees out there for. And that project is on the Shell Rock River.
Yeah, so a part of the Shell Rock River Restoration Project is doing a lot of tree revetments where you actually place trees, because there's a lot of over widening in the river, so they place trees perpendicular to the stream bank to try and help, decrease that channel width. And so we were looking at quantities, and a lot of the trees that we're gonna need, we're gonna be harvesting from that site because it's in close proximity. So it's a great source. We can't get trees themselves from the AMA because it's designated as a hardwood forest. And so there's a lot more permitting that we have to go through. And so since we own this property, we will be using a large amount of the trees on site for that restoration project. So, there'll be a lot of tree clearing as a result of that project. And that'll take place before a lease would be signed and moving for the gravel.
It might not be done before, but
Yeah.
before somebody gets out there and actually starts moving the gravel, some of those trees will be gone.
Who would write up the lease information on that then?
We would have our attorneys work on the lease agreements.
Then we'd have to put that out in the public.
Yep, we'd have to notice that for public bid.
Okay.
Do we have any borings for sand and gravel to know we do?
Yeah, we do. We receive those prior to us purchasing it, because that was some of the stuff that we used for the appraisal process when we looked at the Headwaters property. So we do have borings, I want to say 5 or 6 out on that site.
And there's been a couple of people that have been interested in that one garage to get it moved. So that'd be another good thing. And then when it's all said and done, we still own the land and we can turn it over to the DNR, whatever owns the rest of them.
Yeah, we could more than likely what we would do is turn it back over to as part of the AMA with the adjacent property. So any questions on that? If not, I'd like to see 2 motions, probably a motion to put the garage up for bid and a motion to work on a lease agreement and putting that out for bid.
Okay, do I have a motion for the garage to put it out for bids?
So moved.
Made by Manager Kramer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Manager Pistorius. Any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
His mouth move.
Aye.
Manager Stuskey,
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried. And we need another motion to put it out for lease, the property. I'll introduce that motion. Motion by Manager Bakken. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Manager Kramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Bakken,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Stuskey.
Aye.
Manager Delger.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is all I have.
Well, on to item number 5 is Project Program Manager Courtney Phillips.
Yes, the first item I have, item A, is a resolution 2021-09, Lassard Sands Outdoor Heritage Council Phase 11 grant application. This is for our habitat restoration program that we've been completing for the last multiple years. The habitat restoration program started at Phase 4. We are now applying for Phase 11. I don't have a full project list with you because the RFP was just put out and it's due the end of May 27th. But it is going to include wetland restorations on already acquired parcels. There's going to be enhancement projects with vegetation with private landowners. a stream bank restoration, as well as some protection properties. So we have a pretty good idea, but we're still finalizing the list, so I don't have a completed application to share with you, but we're looking at applying for anywhere between $3 and $4 million for this project. So if there is a
So I
first.
have a motion to introduce resolution 2021-09.
So moved.
Made by Manager Kramer. Do I have a second? Second by Manager Pistorius. Courtney, would you please read the resolution?
I would. Resolution 2021-09, Shell Rock River Watershed District LSOHC grant application. Be it resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District, hereinafter referred to as applicant, acts as legal sponsor for the Shell Rock River Watershed Habitat Restoration Program Phase 11, contained in the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council application to be submitted on May 27th. And be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby authorized to apply to the LSOHC, hereinafter referred to as state, for funding of intended projects on behalf of the applicant. Be it further resolved that the applicant has the legal authority to apply for financial assistance and the institutional, managerial, and financial capability to ensure adequate acquisition, maintenance, and protection of the intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not incurred any construction costs or has not entered into any written agreements to purchase property for intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not violated any federal, state, or local laws pertaining to fraud, bribery, graft, take-back, collusion, conflict of interest, or other unlawful or corrupt practice. Be it further resolved that upon approval of the application by the state, the applicant may enter into an agreement with the state for the above referenced project, and that the applicant certifies that it will comply with all applicable laws and regulations as stated in the contract agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that Andy Henschel, District Administrator for the Shell Rock River Watershed District, is hereby authorized to execute such agreements as are necessary to implement the intended projects on behalf of the applicant, dating May 11th, 2021.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius?
Aye.
Manager Kramer?
Aye.
Manager Bakken?
Aye.
Manager Hanson?
Aye.
Manager Besuski?
Aye.
Manager Belcher?
Aye. Leah? Okay, that's good. Okay, resolution 2021-09 passes.
Thank you. Next item is a motion to award a contractor for the J9 outlet project. This project is a Bowser-funded project. We are working on repairing some head cutting that is taking place out at the outlet. There's going to be a small repair to some sinkholes that are on the J9 tile itself. This is not going to be any cost to the landowners. It's all going to be funded by the grant. We sent out this request for quotes to 4 contractors at the end of April. And the lowest quote that was received was from Mark Morheim for $37,115.75. And so we are looking to award him the contract to do the work. We have until December 31st of the end of this year to complete the project.
Okay, is there a motion to award a contract for J9 outlet?
So moved.
Made by Manager Hanson. Do I have a second?
Second, Pazuki.
By Manager Besuski. Any discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius?
Aye.
Manager Kramer?
Aye.
Manager Bakken?
Aye.
Manager Hanson?
Aye.
Manager Besuski?
Aye.
Manager Belcher?
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The next is a motion to approve a temporary easement with Travis and Kristen Wasmon. This is a result of the J9 outlet project. The easiest way of accessing the site, because there's no direct roads to this location, are to use Travis's driveway and then cutting across the US Fish and Wildlife and Pheasants Forever property. We already have an agreement with Pheasants Forever and US Fish and Wildlife to be able to access on the property because we did the construction of that property and those agreements are still valid. We already have temporary construction agreements with the 2 landowners where the project is going to take place. So this is a final step in just using Travis's driveway. We did have verbal communication with them, so we're just securing it with an easement. It's also time sensitive. Mark wants to be able to get the riprap out there when conditions are dry, so that's not going to be any rutting.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the easement?
So moved.
Made by Manager Bakken. Do I have a second? I'll second. Second by Manager Kramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, Lee, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius?
Aye.
Manager Kramer?
Aye.
Manager Bakken?
Aye.
Manager Hanson?
Aye.
Manager Bestuski?
Aye.
Manager Delcher?
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you. The last item is resolution 2021-10 Pickerel Lake Property Option Agreement. We do have funding for this property out of our Phase 10 Habitat Restoration Program. This is south of Albert Lea and contains a series of low wetlands and some cropland, but mostly wetland property. We are applying for the wetland restoration of these funds with our Phase 11, but again, so we already have signed agreements, so we're just looking at getting this approved as part of our Phase 10 Habitat Restoration Program projects.
Is there a motion to introduce resolution 2021-10?
So moved.
Made by Manager Kramer. Is there a second?
Second.
Made by Manager Hanson. Courtney, please read the resolution.
Resolution 2021-10, enter into Pickerel Lake Property Belshon Option Agreement. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District Board of Managers pursues the mission of implementing reasonable and necessary improvements to the water-related and other natural resources within its boundaries. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District is charged with implementing the Shell Rock River Watershed District Watershed Management Plan. Whereas Thomas and Janice Belshon, the landowners, approached the district in regard to sale of their Pickerel Lake property to the district. This property would be permanently protected if purchased by the district. Whereas the district staff recommends entering into an option agreement with the landowners, and whereas funding for the purchase of the property has been secured in LSOHC SRRW Habitat Restoration Program Phase 10 grant allocation, the district will follow all requirements set forth in Appendix E of the grant agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District 1 authorizes an option agreement with Thomas and Janice Belshon, and 2 authorizes district staff to execute all documents and record the Freeburg County Recorder's Office dated May 11th, 2021.
Is there any discussion?
What's the plans for the property?
So the plans are to restore it into habitat. So we are applying for the wetland funds to be able to do the restoration work. And then we'll be working with Amy, talking with Amy to see if we want to either maintain ownership of it or turn it over to the DNR.
And there is a part of this easement that the city has reached out to us that was an old railroad bed about possibly making that part of a local trail system as this project proceeds. So as of right now, it's just acquisition and restoration. If we had some pictures of the site, there's a large wetland complex surrounding this.
Yeah, which picture of the site?
I could get one if needed. I can show you after the, I can print one now.
I'd like to see the picture too,
Okay,
if possible.
if you want to just print one out or print a couple out for all the board managers.
How many acres is it?
Just first,
218, but let me double check.
the first part's not 218, or is it?
Correct, no, so we already have a signed option agreement that we're in the appraisal process for the other parcel that's a little bit south, and that's egg ground. This is for the remaining property that the Belshons own that are north of that, just east of Pickerel Lake. And it is 218 acres. But I'll go print a picture.
So this, if you know where the Alberley elevator is most of the ground behind to the south of Alberley elevator.
We're approaching 300 then acres.
Altogether, I believe right around 260 acres. Maybe a little over 260.
It goes all the way back down to the blacktop, I think, from Conger Blacktop, I call
No, don't go that far
What was
down.
the
it.
price?
Doesn't go that far?
No. What's that?
What was the price?
We don't have a price yet. That's why we just have the option agreement in hand, and then we'll do the appraisal to determine price and then go from there.
And the crop acres?
As far as price for crop acres or for total crop acres? Again, I want to say the first piece that we already have an option on, I believe was 50, I want to say right around 57 acres. Don't hold me to that. The other 3 pieces out of the 218 total, I would imagine there's somewhere around probably 100 acres of crop ground.
You familiar with it?
Does it, like the Elderly Township, this is located in Elderly Township.
Correct, yep.
So does the township get a notification letter that there's plans to convert some of the land, or does Freeborn County, are they notified as we're doing some of this? Or-
They're notified once it's turned over to DNR. The DNR does notify both I believe both the township and the county, but for sure the county. I'll have to check on the township.
Well, I'd like to see
Not including that one, and this one already has a signed option. So,
I'd like to see the townships and not just Elderly, but the other townships too, that we're doing some of these projects notified ahead of time so they can have a little input on it or whatever. I know we're doing some, we're going to go north of Elderly in the summer, right, for property up there.
We have a piece in Bancroft Township. Yep.
So what I'm saying is that Bancroft, Elderly, Pickerel Lake, and some of these townships and the county gets involved, ahead of time, so they know what's coming up a little bit.
Mhm.
It just clears the air if everybody knows what's happening.
Yep. A lot of times, I mean, sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we gotta be a little bit careful because if the landowner wants some privacy or, I mean, it's a little bit tough to do that. But most of the time, for this project, for instance, the landowner is willing to, sign the option with his name on it. So this one I don't see an issue with. Some of the other ones can be a little bit more gray, just to keep some anonymity for the landowner and some privacy for the landowner, but yep.
Well, lately I've been trying to read the Minneapolis paper on the weekends a little bit, and I think about a month ago, there was an article about the DNR and their funding. And it seems like their license fees, their fishing fees, they're going down. And it showed in that article that within a year or two, they're going to be out of funding per se as, normal funding. So when we buy a piece of property, do our enhancements and turn it over to them, are we turning it over to a responsible party that's got the funds to maintain it?
Yeah, and I think that's always been one of our biggest issues when we look at whether we turn a property over or not is the maintenance piece. And that's why I think we try to do our best in when we do the purchase, then we go back after the funding for the actual enhancement of it so we can get it in pristine condition prior to turning it over to the DNR. We've never turned anything directly over the DNR after we purchased it. We've always waited 5 to 10 years or a little longer, and depending on what needs to be done for enhancements and all that stuff on the property.
Thank you.
Yep.
and I'll make sure and get a map out to the remaining board managers and on the call.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit more idea of location, this is directly east of Pickerel Lake. So part of this property would sit right along Highway 69. If you ever head south on 69 towards Twin Lakes, if you know where Pickerel Lake is, there's a little wetland complex on the east side of the road. It would include that portion of it. And then if you know where Albert Lee Elevator is, it includes a portion behind that. Now this map ain't 100% accurate because we did move some boundaries a little bit south and east and west of the elevator.
Yeah, so there, on the map, I marked off an X of what is not included, but I do have partial numbers that I could read off if needed.
Mr. Chairman, one more question, I guess. I've seen some of the city's planning and zoning maps, when we were having meetings up in the city hall.
Yep.
So is any of these areas included in those planning and zoning areas for the city, or have you seen?
This is outside of city limits. It's very close. It almost borders city limits, but it's outside of city limits.
Yeah, some of the property borders the cities.
Correct.
So I'd just like to see them informed too, that, maybe they have better plans, who knows?
Yep, and like I said, the city has been informed, at least the engineering staff, because you can see the old railroad right away in there. That was something that they want to work with us on. And more than likely probably work with us on prior to transferring to the DNR. So we have a little bit more control on the management and creation of a trail system there. But what's nice about that trail was actually give you a trail that would lead right to the park there on Picker Lake. Yeah, you would have to cross 69, but it gives a trail access almost all the way to the park area down there.
A lot of potential there. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Pistorius.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Bakken.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager Besuski.
Aye.
Manager Felter.
Aye. Resolution 2021-10 passes.
Thank you. That's all that I have.
So that was one, number 6, technical specialist, Scott Christensen.
Thank you. I have one item on the agenda today, and that is a motion to approve culvert repairs at Wedge Creek Reach 6. Back in 2018, 2019, we had excessive spring flooding, which caused significant ice jams on the Wedge Creek drainage system, which unfortunately damaged one of our culverts that was installed during our stream restoration efforts prior to, and we are looking to submit or approve a bid or quote for repairs on that culvert. And just a little overview, we sent out an RFQ on May 4th, and our lowest quote received was $30,000, $450.00 from North Construction LLC.
What was the company?
North Construction LLC.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the culvert repairs in Wedge Creek?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Manager Kramer. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Manager Bakken. Is there any discussion?
Question on FEMA. Does FEMA help cover some of those costs? Have we checked into that?
We did check into that. Once we were aware that it was defective, we missed the deadline for the FEMA to get it on the FEMA list for a fix. However, once we finished up with all of our projects within, I believe it was our phase 5, we noticed we had $110,000 left. So we are going to actually use phase 5, which is this same project, which is a Wedge Creek Reach 6. So we're going to use those grant funds to reimburse us for the fix of this project. And with that, we don't have to return all of those dollars, phase 4. So phase 5 was the upper 20.
Yeah, so phase 4 is the wetland restoration. Technically, it had expired, but there was a COVID extension. So as a result of that, we were able to get additional timeline. And then Upper Twin is also, and Lower Twin is also in phase 4.
Yep. So we have some funds left that we're using for maintenance on some of the stuff before we have to turn the funds back over to the Sarge Sams. And we have a tight timeline on that. Construction has to be done by end of June, because at that point we have to return those funds back over to the Sarge Sams. And what was the total number on that grant?
Oh, the total that we received?
Yes.
Oh, it was like 1.2 million.
So out of all the projects, we were able to do them under budget of what our estimated budget was of 1.2 million. So we will be returning probably roughly somewhere around $50,000 of that grant back over to LaSarge Sams. But the good thing is we used a large majority of it and we weren't too far off in our estimates for our projects, so that should help us out.
Perfect. Any more discussion? Hearing none, Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Bakken.
Aye.
Manager Hanson.
Aye.
Manager Besuski.
Aye.
Manager Delcher.
Aye, motion carried. Go on, Devin.
Oh, it was 2.4 for phase 4, phase 5 is 1.2. So many phases and
That's
millions.
close. That's close. Go on to item number 7, manager's report. I'm the city and county liaison, and I have not had any personal contact yet. Hopefully next month that'll change. I'll come back with something. Joe, have you started having any meetings with the advisory committee?
Yep, we finally had a meeting, so, and Courtney had gotten the information out on the lake cleaning. So that was the major issue that was discussed.
Okay. Good. I'll go on to the item number 8, manager items, or any manager items. I'll skip it back.
We're kind of discussing him here, but go ahead.
Any manager items? Nope, hearing none. Item 9, upcoming meetings. Our next regular meeting would be June 8th. And we're not knowing for sure where that's gonna be, for sure, 100%.
Mr. Chair, I've kind of decided we'll have the June 8th meeting here like we are having this one. Just because, again, when we notice a meeting, it's hard to switch venues. But I do believe starting July, our July meeting, we will be back up at the city council chambers. But I believe for the June meeting, I would like to have it here in person and then also with Zoom for those who want to attend versus Zoom. I think it makes it a little bit easier for staff so we know what to expect when the meeting comes and we're not trying to shift. The city does have a new camera system. We're not sure how that hooks up to the Zoom stuff yet. So I think for comfortability, we would prefer to have the June meeting here at the office, and then starting July 1st, we will move our meetings back up to City Hall starting July.
Okay. And we are still working on the annual meeting?
Yep, we're still working on the annual meeting. It does look like though, with everything opening back up in July, I probably won't have it in July just because those are pretty busy months. I would like to move it further into say August or September. And I'm really thinking about that September timeline would be a good time for a annual meeting.
Okay. Any other meetings?
More than likely, we will be having a dredge update meeting, and more than likely, I will be pulling together a exec meeting here in the next few weeks.
Okay. Anything else from the managers or staff? That then, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Made by Manager Bakken. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
By Manager Kramer. Leah, please call roll.
Manager Pistorius.
Aye.
Manager Kramer.
Aye.
Manager Bakken.
Aye.
Manager Hanson. Manager Besuski.
Aye.
Manager Delcher.
Aye, we are adjourned. Be safe, everybody.